Well, a very good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. My name is Catherine Achieng'a. You are watching Season 2 of Walking the Talk, the inaugural show this year where, of course, we get to discuss and understand what are some of the things that the government is doing in the continued war against graft. Well, last year we were having one-on-one discussion, but this year it's getting bigger, it's getting better. It's all about having a panel to discuss these issues. It's all about having an audience to talk to us and give us their feedback on what they really think in terms of the ongoing war on graft. Is the government doing enough? Are we recovering the assets? And are we seeing the masterminds of graft behind bars? Those are all the questions that we are asking this evening as we begin the first show this year of Walking the Talk. But before I introduce you to the guests who are joining us this evening, let me quickly throw it over to Safin, who is our social media presenter, just to give us some insights on how you can be able to talk to us as well back at home as well as here in studio. Over to you, Safin, and good evening to you.
Thank you, Catherine. Of course, it's bigger and it's better, and my role here will be to ensure that your voice comes in this conversation, even as we invite you to engage with us on social media. So we'll be looking at different ways in which we can win the war on corruption. We want your voice to count on this conversation. So we are asking you, are we winning the war against corruption in the country? That's the question that is driving our conversation today. Do engage with us on social media at KBC Channel 1, at Safin_Achieng, at Kato Achieng'a. The hashtag we are using is Walking the Talk. I will be sampling some of your views in the course of this particular conversation, so make sure you're part of that. Plus, we're having a studio audience that we'll also be interacting with right here, just to understand more about what they also have to say with regards to the progress we are making as a country in winning the war against corruption. Achieng'a.
Well, thank you, Safin. Of course, give us your feedback. She will be coming back later just to find out what you have to say and the questions that you have for our panelists. And for now, let me unveil who our panelists are. Of course, they're all from the multi-agency task force that is charged with the ongoing war against corruption. If you remember, just recently, President Uhuru Kenyatta pointed out that we are beginning to win this war. How are we doing that? Well, the guest in studio will be telling us that, and I'll begin to my immediate left, where, of course, we have with us Faith Ngeche, who is from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. She is a senior attorney, civil litigation and asset recovery. It's good to have you this evening, Faith.
Thank you, Catherine.
Well, next to her, we have the Deputy Police Spokesperson, Anthony Munga, who will also be giving us insights on what the police are doing in the continued war on graft. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Asante sana, thank you.
Well, last but not least, we have with us Jennifer Gitari from the Asset Recovery Agency. She's a senior state counsel. Good to have you this evening.
Thank you.
All right, let's begin the discussion with what we've seen recently. In 2019, the corruption index by Transparency International ranking Kenya number 137 out of 180. Was that a fair analysis in your perception, Faith?
When Transparency International does its survey to gauge how the fight against corruption is going, they look at various factors. And some of the factors, they go to the grassroots and hear what the Mwananchi is saying down there. And also, they also consider the number of convictions that we have had, or each country has had on cases of graft. And basically the general perception. What I'll say is the war against corruption has really picked up. We have accelerated the war against corruption, and especially in the past 1 year, whereas we have seen billions of assets recovered.
You've not told me if you think the ranking was fair or not.
Well, I'm not really say whether it was fair or not, because you see, perception is a very strong influencer of what is going on out there.
Okay.
So that would be my answer.
Anthony, do you think the public perceives the war on corruption where we are, that we are making progress? Are we making strides?
Thank you, Catherine, for that. I being part of government on this war against corruption, coming from the National Police Service, I agree with my colleague here that we feel we are winning this war. However, the issue of the ranking, the index, and all that, that is, you have rightly put it, it's perception, and perception sometimes informs facts, sometimes it is, it is something very, very subjective, which we cannot really deal with it as if we're dealing with facts. It is a perception, so it is good if we learn about such perceptions, then they will inform us on where we need to improve, and so it's a good thing if we get that. That is feedback according to me. It's feedback.
Okay.
Yes.
Jennifer, asset recovery. We're always talking about corruption, but everyone wants to know, what have we recovered so far if you were to give an analysis in the past 1 year when it comes to recovering assets from proceeds of crime?
Yes, thank you very much, Catherine, for that question. We have seen a lot of renewed efforts towards this fight against corruption. And one of the ways that we are combating this vice in this country is assets recovery.
Yeah.
For a long time, people would be corrupt and they would get away sort of with what they have stolen. But now that is not happening because there is an institution and an agency that is specifically dedicated to the recovery of these proceeds of crime that have been stolen. Since Assets Recovery Agency was established, we have seen a lot of efforts that have been made towards recovering assets. We have recovered from all these scandals that have been reported. And so far we have around 3.9 billion under investigation, and we have preserved around 1.3 billion in the last financial year.
In terms of what you've recovered and
yes,
taken back?
it's both assets valued to that amount. And we have seen it acting as a deterrent, because now there is no incentive to stealing, because if you steal, Assets Recovery Agency will come for those assets and revert that to the public.
All right. In terms of challenges that you're facing as ESCC when it comes to seizing some of these properties that are acquired through graft, what would you say are some of your biggest problems in this continued war?
As we know, corruption is done in secret. You will not find a smoking gun. You find those people who are engaged in corruption, they go to very great extents to conceal the proceeds of crime. That is the money they have stolen, the properties that they have stolen. So they hide the properties either in companies, shell companies, or they hide them offshore, or they even hide them with their relatives. They stash the money in safes in the houses. Now, knowing all those means through this which people hide the money, then it becomes quite a challenge, because the processes that need to be followed to unconceal or to unravel the processes, the ways in which those people have hidden money is quite complex. And that is what we call financial investigations.
Financial investigations.
We call it, basically ESCC calls it following the money.
Do you have the capacity to do that?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Considering the amount that we have recovered in the past 1 year, and what the loss that we have averted from happening.
What amount? We like to hear numbers as Kenyans talk about corruption.
Yeah, I know numbers are very attractive. We have recovered over 22 billion.
And in how long?
In 1 year. That is in 2019.
Okay.
Both in properties, land, mostly grabbed land, and also embezzled funds by public officers. And we've also averted a loss of about 130 million Kenya shillings.
Okay, we'll be talking about where that money goes back once you recover it. But before we get to that, I want to move over to you, Anthony, and just look at, she said it's very complex when it comes to investigating corruption. And we've seen, the police sometimes been accused of, playing to the social media, playing to the public. You arrest, what you call the big fish, take them to court. Then once they're in court, you begin to ask for time to investigate. What usually happens? Is it that you haven't investigated by the time these people are being taken to court?
Thank you, Catherine. The police, we have that primary mandate of investigating crime. And it's also within our domain to investigate corruption. Kenyans need to understand that we operate within the law. We have procedures in criminal investigations. And I would like to underscore the fact that police processes where we arrest a person, we take them to court, police processes are not meant to be punitive. Yeah? We are just facilitators in the wheel of justice. And therefore, when we arrest people for corruption cases or any other case, any other crimes, when we take them through the process, they don't lose their rights. They have right to bail, you see, where another agents of government would grant that. So when people are taken through the process and then we see them, maybe they have been permitted to be out as the case goes on, that is part of the process. I know Kenyans would want us to tia watu ndani, and they want us to be punitive.
Yes.
A police process is not punitive. We are just there to facilitate justice. And Kenyans don't lose their rights simply because they have been arrested. They don't lose their rights.
What about, the public perception that, you come for them at 4 a.m. in the morning, all the drama and everything? Is it, what does that, what would be your reaction to that?
There is a perception that we go for them
at 4 a.m. early in the morning, arrest them, when they're still in bed and those kind of things.
You see, every case has got its own merit. We will come for you the way you respond to us. And therefore, if there is justifiable need that we come for you at 2 a.m., then we'll come for you at 2 a.m. But ordinarily, police, we arrest so many people in a given day. I don't think all those people are saying that we go to them at 4 a.m. or at 6 a.m.
Or the Friday arrests. I don't mind. Okay. In terms of, tracing assets, what are some of the challenges that, you're experiencing as ARA?
Yeah, when this money is stolen, they don't put it in somewhere obvious that you will find. So you find that there's a lot of layering, there's a lot of concealing, and a lot of laundering. So you will find the stolen assets are in companies, they are offshores, like Faith has said.
Yes.
So it becomes a very complex form of investigation. And we have to do a lot of financial analysis to follow that money to find where it has been hidden. So that is one of the issues that come up when it comes to tracing these assets. But eventually now we have capacity to follow that money through financial investigation and financial analysis.
So once you get the money, how do you inject it back into the economy? Where does it go?
Yes, there are regulations, proposed regulations, that under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, Section 109, it provides for a criminal asset recovery fund, which is supposed to be operationalized by way of regulations, where that money is put together. There's a committee that sits and decides on how that money is to be used. But the intention is to revert that money back to the public, to benefit the public in terms of if there are schools, if there are hospitals, basically things that will benefit the public, and they can see that this school, this institution was built by money that was recovered, that was stolen from the public.
Okay. We like talking about the big fish, and most of the times, the people who are actually involved in corruption are people who have, like you said, money. The people who sit in high places. They're perhaps people who have a following when it comes to politics. So how easy is it for you to be able to, get these people and get them to, accountable based on that they have the money to hire the lawyers? Perhaps the community will come and start saying, you're targeting our person, so to speak.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is an independent commission under the Constitution. When it comes to big fish, as they call them, those you'll find is the politically connected people, the governors, the CSs, the PSs. We investigate and we follow the law. As long as we have followed the processes of the law, then they cannot come back to us and say maybe we abused their rights or breached. However, as you rightly put it, they have the money and they have the political connections. They will hire the best lawyers, and of course they have the right to representation in a court of law. They have the right to be given injunctive orders, which they go after. They have the right to be released on bail. They also have the power and the money which they use to interfere with witnesses, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Such that you find a case has been taken to court, they've been prosecuted by the Director of Public Prosecution, and the hearing has commenced. Then crucial witnesses recant their evidence, either because of threat, intimidation, or you cannot
they've simply
put
been
passage.
Incentives.
They could be incentivized. You get,
Okay.
So those are some of the challenges that we get when it comes to conviction of the big fish.
So how do you bypass that, if it's possible to bypass it legally?
One of the things we are doing, and you've seen even the judiciary has been very supportive of us. When a state officer has been prosecuted, taken to court, taken plea, they are barred from accessing office. Once they are barred from accessing office or exercising the powers that are connected to that office, one, they will not be able to intimidate witnesses who might be within that office. They may also not access the documents which the witnesses may be using. They may also not be able to access the money, and that is usually done by freezing the accounts or putting caution on their land, their properties and such. So with those measures, we sort of clip their wings. They are not able to flex as much as they would were we not able to do that. However, what I can say is there is also political goodwill to fight corruption. And we've seen the president has over and over again said that we have to win this war.
Okay.
And when it comes to that now, their space narrows down as we move on. Yeah.
Picking from what she's saying, when it comes to investigations, we've also seen, similar issues arising, evidence disappearing and those kind of things. How are you as, investigative agencies trying to cushion yourself from the same people who are going after the witnesses from coming, for the police as well?
Yeah, I want to agree with her, because that's why we call it war on corruption. We don't expect them to sit back and let us just, have it easy. And therefore, we continue empowering ourselves. And that's why you see us together here, representing the multi-agency approach, which is now the latest initiative in this war. It brings a synergy together when we have when we are investigating a criminal, for example, in economic crimes, and we realize that we have substantial evidence that they have acquired money, they have acquired assets. Then that's where we bring in our counterparts to begin the process of recovering those assets as we focus on the criminal investigations. And therefore, as she has said earlier on, we want to make corruption not attractive. We want to make it not attractive so that people will think twice. And I think...
Are you succeeding in making it
we are succeeding.
Yeah.
We are succeeding.
How so?
Pardon?
How so? How are you succeeding?
If I may,
given the figures, the billions that we as government have managed to recover through this process, through working together. So when you bring these agencies of law enforcement agencies and under one roof to operate together as a team, then we have seen tremendous success. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We are energized to recover more assets, recover more money, and make corruption very, very unpalatable.
Faith, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. Through the recovery, when you take away the motivation to engage in corruption, because the motivation to engage in corruption is getting money, is grabbing
you're talking about
property,
the
is
assets.
embezzling, is the assets,
Yeah.
is what you get for yourself. When an officer, a public officer or a state officer knows whether I get bribes by engaging in some procurement illegalities, that money, they will come for it. And they will not only come for it, they will also come for anything connected with that money. If I'm to use that money to construct maybe a multi-story building on some land which I had bought legally,
Yes.
they will not only get the building, they'll also come for the land, which is called tainted property under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. So when they know they won't get away with it, definitely they don't want to face that pain.
Okay.
Even
The
without
risk will be
mentioning
too
names,
high.
Yeah.
Without mentioning names,
Yeah.
we have reports of some of the families that are now under investigations, and we have recovered assets that they have had to change their lifestyles. They have had to change schools for their children because they cannot afford that kind of life anymore. So yes, we're winning this war.
Yeah, and just to add, the multi-agency approach
Yeah.
to the war against corruption and also assets recovery has really been useful since the renewed efforts and the president really supporting all these agencies within the MAT framework. So we are having a lot of collaboration between the Assets Recovery Agency, EACC, the National Police Service, the Kenya Revenue Authority. So, and all of us are sharing information, the National Intelligence Service, because we operate under the 3 C's: collaboration, cooperation, and coordination.
Okay, we'll
Those
be
are the
talking
3
about
C's
the
that we
collaboration
work on,
and some of the
yes.
challenges that perhaps you may be facing when you're doing, trying to work, different organizations coming together and trying to pursue some of these criminals. But for now, we want to go to Safina Achieng'a, who is on the other side of the studio. It's time for us to get what the viewers at home are saying. So Safin, if you can hear me, what is the feedback that you have so far? Okay, we'll be getting back to her in just a bit, but for now, let's take a quick breather. You're watching Walking the Talk. Don't go too far.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Baba yako hana cha wosi, yesi hana cha kazi gani? Baba yako anakwenda kwa yule mwanamke lake. Sijatafuta mwingine.
Napata senti kule.
Thank you father. Na yule baba yako pale atakapoleta makubwa hapa, ndio utaniambia mimi simo. Ni jirani yao hapo.
Labda nyumba ile ama ni uko mbele, sio hapo.
Mwanzo kimuoa kile cheti kinakupatia privilege. Exactly. Hii ikiwa itakuwa mambo ya zamu kwa zamu sasa. Okay, goodbye. Okay, night.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
Are they deep in love?
They're very much in love, just like 2 adolescents. I mean, I've never seen Eduardo so in love as he is right now with Elena.
Elena? She has the exact same name as his prior wife, your cousin Elena Calcano? I'm very sorry about that.
I'm going to ask you to not speak a word to me anymore.
I beg you, please stop it! Madam, I beg you!
Every Monday evening, we take you back where the action happened.
We cheer up your Monday blues.
Our cameras rove all week to cover the latest in the enormous showbiz scene.
We show you what you missed even if you were present.
Grapevine gives 100% support to the local entertainment content.
From celebrity buzz,
Music,
fashion,
and all manner of entertainment and youth talent.
watch Grapevine every Monday at 10 p.m.
Remember what they say, if you did not see it on Grapevine, then it most probably
it never happened.
What you gotta do.
Welcome back. Indeed, you are watching Walking the Talk. Our focus of discussion this evening, we're looking at how to curb corruption, issues of asset recovery, investigations, and trying to trace money that is out there that has been gotten out of proceeds of crime and money laundering. Of course, the guest in studio with me, I'm talking to Faith Ng'ethe from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We also have with us the Deputy Police Spokesperson, Anthony Munga, as well as Jennifer Gitiri from the Asset Recovery Agency. But before we continue, it's time for us to get your feedback, get your thoughts, and any questions that you might have to any of our panelists. So I'll be crossing over to Safina Achieng'a, who is on the other side of the studio, just to give us your feedback. Safin, what do you have for us this evening?
Kate, a lot of reactions already on social media. Remember, we asked our viewers whether we are winning the war on corruption in the country. And you can follow this conversation at KBC Channel 1, at Kato Achieng'a, at Safin_Achieng. The hashtag we're using to track your tweets on social media is Walking the Talk. And allow me to take some few. One, Honorable Kennedy Ondiek, you say it is high time we got more serious with the war on corruption, and you talk about what has been done, and you're asking who is actually in charge of the Harambee Annex Office. Thank you so much for your feedback. We have one, Re-Afrique, you say hashtag Walking the Talk. The rate at public funds are being looted from Kenya is alarming, and soon there will be nothing to loot, nothing to eat. Will the war on graft rescue Kenyans from looters? Thank you so much for that. We have one, CFC Josh, you say, what do you think is curtailing the war on graft in Kenya? Is it the judiciary or the godfathers? And of course, we have one, Philmon Anthony, you say, truth be told, there is no war on graft going on in Kenya, and there won't be any in the near future. What's going on is a war among corrupt individuals and economic saboteurs. We have one here at Kenya Now One. The greatest impediment to the war on graft in Kenya is mostly the judiciary. If all the corruption cases were properly handled, Kenya would recover over 1 trillion shillings. Thank you so much for your feedback, and I will be sampling more as we continue having this conversation. Remember, the hashtag we are using is Walking the Talk at KBC Channel 1, at Kato Achieng'a, at Safin_Achieng. Back to you, Kate.
All right, thank you, Safin, for that feedback. And I want to begin with you, Jennifer. Not a lot of people optimistic about the war on graft based on, that feedback. Well, what are your immediate thoughts on, the
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, Kenyans are frustrated.
Yeah.
For a long time, they have been frustrated. But I want to, from where I sit, I want to tell Kenyans that there are renewed efforts. The efforts we are seeing now is not, we have never seen this kind of efforts before, from the president to all the institutions. There's that renewed effort for us to come together and fight this war on corruption. And I would like to encourage members of the public, they are our stakeholders in this fight against corruption, because they hold the intelligence. They know the people that have been stealing, if it is in the counties, those that are stealing in government. The Kenyans know where this money is invested. So we hold them dearly as a source of intelligence, even for us as Assets Recovery Agency. And for me, just to tell them that it's not business as usual. Things have changed, they are changing, and we are going to win this war against corruption.
Do you see, Kenyans coming to the Asset Recovery Agency and saying, I know so-and-so who got rich overnight, maybe you need to investigate?
Yes, Kenyans are most welcome to come to our offices at the Asset Recovery Agency. Yes, we have a lot of intelligence from Kenyans who are giving us this information. And if there are any Kenyan out there who has information that some person holds proceeds that have been stolen from the public, they can come to us. And of course, we use that intelligence. We have to convert that intelligence into evidence. We do our investigations, and if there is probable cause or we find sufficient evidence, of course, we will go and recover those proceeds.
Okay. Jennifer, there was one person who went, Faith. There was one person who, when Safin was sampling the responses, said that the judiciary seems to be an impediment. What would be your reaction to that?
I will not agree with that statement, noting that our courts are courts of evidence. And when we present the evidence in court, they weigh the evidence, and as I stated earlier, at times witnesses are compromised. So when a witness is not there to testify, there's only so much that any of these agencies, including the judiciary, can do. But we have seen very positive orders coming from the judiciary, good rulings and judgments, which are really supporting the war against corruption. And it's not like they are favoring the agencies that are involved in the fight against corruption, but the interpretation of the law and weighing public interest against personal interest. And when public interest wins, definitely we will see more and more of these judgments and ruling being delivered.
Anthony, is it that you're not protecting the witnesses, or why are they opting to to shy away from giving the evidence?
Thank you, Catherine. We cannot protect all witnesses. We have millions of witnesses in various cases in this country, but we also have mechanisms of witness protection where we have established that there could be potential danger to that witness. In fact, we have the Witness Protection Agency, an agent of government, which helps us. So whenever we have really serious cases where we believe that witnesses feel that the possibility of them facing harm due to being witnesses, then we engage them, and they protect our witnesses. However, remember we said it's not only that witnesses are threatened. Sometimes maybe they could be enticed to cross over and recant what they had said. So it's an entire system that we need to work together. And that's why we're insisting on this. And then I want to underscore the importance of the public realizing that they are actually a very critical stakeholder in this war. Because we cry that we have corrupt leadership. We have some corrupt leaders, yet they were voted in, and more will be voted in. And therefore, as we point fingers at others, let us also question ourselves. What is our role in this? And we want to call upon every Kenyan, much as the government has brought together these agencies to work together to fight corruption. We cannot be the investigators and the witnesses through and through. We need support of the public, and we need them to support us in actually giving evidence in court, and also in giving us good leadership for this country. Yes, we have to work together.
We have to work together. All right, it's time for us to also get feedback from our audience who are in studio. So I'll begin with you, Badia. Just introduce yourself and then ask a question. Who are you addressing it to?
Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Jackton Badia. So I'm a member of the public, and I'm addressing my question to our three visitors and guests. So the first question I directed to Madam Faith, that why is it taking too much, or why are the members of EACC taking a lot of time in being independent? Like initially as the members of the public, ever since independence, we've seen prosecution coming from the Office of the Attorney General, we from other bodies, the time that they were being managed by the likes of Ringera, all these came together because the government, or let's say the top official in the government, had control, access control towards the Anti-Corruption Commission. So now we have come to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, but we are still seeing that the body is not yet independent, and that is still influencing our confidence as a member of the public in believing that you guys are really doing well. We tend to see that you guys are still the so-called toothless watchdog that ever existed in time, so our confidence is still not well boosted. Also back to my friend also, as the investigative body of this process, we as the member of the public, we are asking that why don't you guys come with a model, a reporting mechanism that the public can also have confidence in trusting the police, because we believe that in Kenya, the highest form of corruption, which is bribery, is right in front of the police, the ones who are supposed to be investigating the matter. So we also lose a lot of confidence also when it comes to reporting these matters. The mechanism is weak, and with that, there's a lot of gap and loopholes towards this fight, and between collaboration between the public, as you have said, and your body. Also to the asset recovery, we are wondering if, like the 22 billion, for the first time, I don't have not been informed for quite some time. I haven't been aware of this asset recovery plan. And for instance, the money that you guys have recovered, does it go back to the coffer it was collected, or it's always being used again for other means and then being stolen, and it goes the same way? So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Badia. So we'll take another round of questions. I just note them down so we respond to them fast. Okay, we'll begin with you. You are a toothless dog. Your independence is compromised.
EACC, as the major anti-graft body, when it comes to its operation, we operate independently. When it comes to investigations, we are not directed by any agency on who to investigate, how far to go into our investigations, whom to recommend for prosecution. That we are totally independent. The perception that maybe that has been going around, let me put it like that, maybe because of the complexity of the cases that we tackle, which are quite complex and they take time to conclude. By the time you start an investigation, someone has hidden the money abroad. You have to do what we call mutual legal assistance to another country to provide you with, identify where that money was stashed, provide you with witnesses, collect documents. It takes a bit of time. And this may tire the public. We are still waiting to have this person X. And you may see like EACC is being influenced by other forces which are beyond us. But that is not the position.
All right.
But when it comes to finances, you find we rely on the exchequer. It is the parliament which determines how much we get, how much our budget will be. And that is beyond us. So as far as operations are concerned, we are totally independent. As far as the budget is concerned, we depend on the exchequer.
So is the budget sufficient?
The budget is not sufficient.
Okay.
Yes.
Anthony, you talked about the public not having the confidence to come and report to the police. Do you have a mechanism to make that much easier for people to be willing to be whistleblowers?
Obadiah talked about weak mechanisms, which are not very inspiring for the people to come to the police. And he talked about bribery as a common form of the corruption in the mindset of Kenyans. remember we have heard from a colleague here, Faith, that these forms of corruption, like bribery, it is not done where there are witnesses, and in most cases, it is done by people who are willing to compromise something, and therefore, those who engage in it, those who may go out and try to influence police officers and try to bribe them, first of all, they are not willing to go and report because they are the initiators. And in fact, some of them look at the police officer who may not be willing to engage in such acts as a bad police officer who is being hard on them for no reason instead of making things easier. So by the nature of the crime of bribery, it may be difficult. However, the police is open to all channels of reporting, the normal channel of reporting.
So are the mechanisms, difficult for someone to report? I think
we have through the internal affairs unit of the National Police Service, which is plays some oversight role on the National Police Service officers in terms of standards and how they operate. It has an anonymous reporting system where any Kenyan can report to them, whether if they're willing to be known, well and good. If they're not willing to be known, we have that mechanisms in the internal affairs unit. And if a Kenyan feels that they have been pushed by a police officer, they have been deprived of their rights. They have been, an officer has demanded for a bribe or anything that is out of acceptable standards, then we have that open mechanism of reporting. We also have our normal lines of reporting. If you witness such, or if you're pushed by a police officer who is abusing his powers, our 999 lines are open now. Many Kenyans do not know that. They are open, they're functional. You can try 999, 911, 112, toll free. Talk to us. And they are manned 24/7 at our command center, National Police Service. So we encourage Kenyans to talk to us. We are open, report to us, we will take appropriate action.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, he had a question for you as well.
Yes, let me answer Obadiah and say that Access Recovery Agency was established out of a need to take away the incentive of stealing public resources. Because now every Kenyan know if you steal public resources, Access Recovery Agency will come for those resources, and even if they have been intermingled with your other assets, they will be recovered. And the idea is when those assets are recovered, the money be used for projects that benefit the public. So for instance, if there is a school somewhere in Marsabit, or a hospital, a clinic in Muranga. So the idea is to use that money to do a project that will benefit the public, so that they'll be looking at that hospital or that school and say, this is our money that was recovered and used to put up this for public facility.
All right, thank you. I think we'll take another question.
Yeah, thank you, Achieng'a.
Okay.
My name is Alex Otunga, representing the public. And my first question, two questions actually. One goes to Madam Jennifer representing EACC. The first question, is there any major corruption case or scandal, which we know many of them have actually taken place in this country, that EACC has actually succeeded and the public has been informed as a way of also assuring and reassuring Kenyans that indeed we are winning war against corruption?
Okay.
Number two, which mitigation measures have you also put in place as EACC to make sure that we win this war against corruption? Because even if you look at our government, we've had major corruption, major scandals taking place, which are actually in the public domain.
Okay.
The other question goes to
Those are ready to Alex.
I'm asking Anthony.
Okay, just one more.
The question is, as Obadiah said, we rely, or actually what happens between the time an arrest has taken place until the time the suspect has been taken to court and perhaps maybe a bail has been given? You know, we rely on the police when it comes to the investigations. And as he said, it is actually, when you look at corruption index in this country, the police department actually is ranked among the best. How do we trust you that you are going to help us in investigations when actually you are ranked the best in terms of corruption in this country? Then lastly, on asset and recovery agency, we know that what we have lost in this country in terms of corruption is billions of shillings. You have only told us you have only recovered 22 billion. What is the main problem? And has this problem been raised so that maybe something can be done to ensure that we recover a lot of money, which we know in the public domain that we have a lot of money which was stolen from the public coffers?
Okay, thank you, Alex. So I'll quickly let you answer those two before we go to Safin, who is on the other side of the studio. I'll begin with you. He's asking if there's any major, corruption case.
Yes, there is. As I said, we have recovered a lot of money. That is the 22 billion you're talking about. And one is through the court process. There's a recent decision that we recovered money worth, was it 387 million from one case. That was a judgment that was given that was positive for EACC. We have also employed what we call alternative dispute mechanism, resolution mechanism, ADR, that is negotiation, mediation, and reconciliation. And you find most of these properties that we have recovered, including the over 2 billion worth Nairobi University land, was through that process. How does this happen? Once we identify that property was illegally acquired, we give demand notices to the person who is a registered owner of that property. They come to us because of the reputational risk that they will face when we go to court. They say, we are willing to negotiate and return this property. But that is provided in law in the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. But there's a rider to it. When we are negotiating, they are required to declare anything else that they may have acquired illegally. And we have recovered so much of that property that we are talking about, the billions, through mediation. Or when we commence investigations on embezzled funds, public funds, maybe a certain law firm that was used as a conduit through which money was dispersed. They come to us. They come to us and they say, no, we will give back the money. And we take that back the money as we continue the process.
No, your time is up.
Allow me to talk about prevention and education, the mitigation measures.
Your time is really up.
All right,
yes.
all right.
Anthony, I think the other question was directed to you.
Yes, he asked me two questions. I think the first one was what happens from the time of arrest to the person being taken to court and being given bail. It's not very clear.
I think the duration.
Yes.
Yes. But at the end of the day, a major corruption scandal, then at the end of the day is paid.
Okay, Otunga, right? Yes, I remember in my initial remarks I said the police process is not meant to be punitive. It is something procedural in the criminal justice system, and therefore in our new constitution, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, all offences are bailable. People who are being investigated, people who are taken to court have got the right to bail. So that is their right, and it's part of our laws, the laws of Kenya. You said that you don't trust us because we are ranked top there in terms of corruption matters, and it's true. It's in the public domain that the police have been ranked up there, and I say this is a perception. When we look at things on the ground, they're a bit different. As Kenyans say, mambo ni tofauti kwa ground, because there are some things that happen and we see that you people trust us so much that you talk to us. When people have problems, they come to us. If tomorrow we say that we are recruiting police officers, your brothers, your children will come to join the police. So in essence, the practical aspects of our society show that you trust us to a very big extent than the perception that people try to portray out there. And I am not saying that to demean what you're saying, but we are also working towards that. We want Kenyans to trust us more, and that's why we are communicating more on what we do, because we have had a culture where the police is always reacting when things have gone bad.
Okay.
We have not been telling our stories, but we are out there, we are talking to the people, and trust us, because we are there for you, we are there to serve you.
Okay.
Yes.
Our time is up, but I just want to give you each like 10 seconds just to tell us, looking forward, what do you think is the best way to prevent corruption? We don't want to be talking about, now recovery. We want to talk about prevention. What would you say as from the Asset Recovery Agency that this is how we can stop it from happening in the first place?
Yes, we are looking towards prevention, because as the old adage is, prevention is better than cure. So we want this institution to have whistleblowers, people who can give information before the actual corruption happens. And nowadays we have seen that happen a lot. And also have deterrent measures to tell the public and to tell public officers that it is expensive to steal public resources because of all these multi-agency efforts of assets recovery, prosecution, recovery of taxes by the Kenya Revenue Authority. So we are looking into prevention now and being more deterrent than reacting after the event.
Okay. Tess, I think we'll wind it up at this point. She has spoken for all of us because our time is really up. 5 seconds.
Yeah, what I'll say is we need to change our culture.
Okay. Change our culture. Thank you.
please.
Anthony, 5 seconds for you.
We are doing our part as government to fight corruption. Please play your part also.
As Kenyans, we must play our part.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you all. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Of course, you're watching Walking the Talk, our discussion this evening focusing on issues touching on corruption. How really can we be able to prevent this from happening, some of the investigation measures that are in place, and what the multi-agency task force is doing to try and completely curb the problem of corruption in this country. Of course, I was engaging Faith Ngeve from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We also had with us Jennifer Gitiri from the Asset Recovery Agency, as well as Anthony Munga, who is the Deputy Police Spokesperson. My name is Catherine Achieng'a. Let's put a cap on the program, but of course, I hand over to Safina Cheng to take your final feedback before we completely wrap up the show. Over to you, Safin.
Thank you so much, Catherine Achieng'a there. Of course, this conversation was not just happening in studio. We have been interacting with some of our viewers on social media. Just a few as we climax this program. Jacob Bokelo say, we are winning. It's only that in our country such that the impact is somewhat being felt, but we are on the right track. On Diek J. Otieno, you say that's why we have, you say that not yet, some leaders are still lack the political will. It may take years for us to see the outcome. Thank you so much for your feedback, all of you who have been interacting with us. Kenneth Ogutu, corruption is too big and we'll always fight back. We've reached a level that the corrupt are very bold, and the war on corruption needs to be intensified once more. Thank you so much. I will not take any more feedback because of time, but remember at KBC Channel 1, at Kato Achieng'a, at Safin_Aching, the hashtag we have been using is Walking the Talk. Let's continue having this conversation online, shall we? My name is Safin Achieng'a. Thank you so much for creating time for us. See you next time.
And of course, we don't forget our audience. Thank you very much for joining us.
On the next